Welcome to China Focus. I'm Shelley Zhang. Now, if you've been paying attention to Chinese politics lately, you may have heard the word reform mentioned once or twice in passing. But the question, of course, is whether Chinese leaders can go from talking the talk to walking the walk. And during the annual legislative session that ended last week, Chinese leaders seemed to want to show that they were going to do some reorganization, specifically when it came to China's State Council. Now, the changes are supposed to be streamlining and making the government bureaucracy more efficient. And some of the big changes are the following. One, they're going to take the State Oceanic Administration and consolidate a lot of the maritime activities such as Coast Guard and things like that under that administration. Two, they're going to take apart the Railways Ministry. Three, they're going to unite several departments to set up a equivalent of a Food and Drug Administration. And the last one is they're going to take the Family Planning Commission apart, put part of it under the Ministry of Health and another part under the Economic Planning Commission. So here today to talk about the State Council shakeup and what that means for China's government are Chen Zhifei and Jason Ma. So thanks for joining us. Do you think this is a significant change? We've been talking a lot about this over the last week.
No, I don't think it's significant. It's just, as you said, streamline with some reorganization. And for example, they kind of but they have different purpose. For example, as this kind of family planning, they split that up into two parts. The parts who doing the Chinese population strategic research part, they move that into National kind of Research and Development Bureau and separate that from the original department. The major purpose for doing this is conflict interesting. Originally, the research is in that department, the family planning department. So they have to constantly prove it's necessary to do this family planning and so that they can keep their job. So because they are in this department, if you say they don't need family planning, they will lose their job. So their research is biased. So now they take that out, put into another separate institute, so they can do independent research. Use that to guide China's future planning.
So that seems like a positive change, right? If they're going to take that the
right. For this part, probably you will see end up with some kind of lose up or relaxation of Chinese family planning kind of strategy. That's probably for it. But for the railway thing, it's probably mainly for their kind of debt.
Well, we talked about the railways last week, and I want to go back to that, but kind of like taking a wider view, what do you think is the most significant change?
I think these two things definitely represent the biggest change. One is the family planning being taken under the wing of the health department, the other is restructuring or even elimination of the Ministry of Railways.
So family planning, does that mean that the one-child policy is going to change?
My overall take, yeah, somebody is having some kind of suspicion along that line that China is losing its population dividends in terms of the economic growth. So they are probably thinking that we have to change the tack, the strategy a little bit. There have been some talks that if a couple, both of them are a single child, are the only child in their home, and then they're eligible for 2 kids being born. That's a possibility. And I think these two strategy initiatives, I think, reflect their intention of thrusting some problems underneath the rug. Because the Family Planning Commission is gone because nobody wants to face the prospect of losing the population dividend. Working force number of people in the workforce have started coming down since last year. And the debt problem as most acute with the railway station is now sort of dissolved because of this new structure.
Well, so the family planning, are you saying they're going to basically, if the Family Planning Commission no longer exists, it'll be easier for them to change the one-child policy?
Right, I guess right now the biggest obstacle is in China there is a lot of conflicting research result. And from the kind of Family Planning Bureau, they constantly saying we should keep carrying this strategy because if we lose up, Chinese population will be out of control. But meanwhile, a lot of other independent researchers saying, no, China is already too late to reverse the aging population, the losing working force. So the kind of at this moment, the government want like take the research out so that they can have an independent voice from their own research institute. So if that's true, end up maybe we can hear some real data, end up maybe relaxation of the one word, kind of one child policy.
So from what you guys have been saying about the Railways Ministry and the Family Planning Commission, it seems like they're saying, okay, this is for restructuring, it's to make it more efficient, to streamline the state council, but there's actually different interests in there, not just making it efficient. So what about the State Oceanic Administration? What's the kind of thing there they want to do?
I think it's mainly because of disputes in the East China Sea revolving around Diaoyu Island. My suspicion is they probably want to have more effective patrolling presence in that area. So they want to streamline the process and the whole mechanism so there could be a more effective response to any provocations or actions taken by Japanese.
So it kind of makes the Chinese sea presence a little stronger.
Right, something like that.
So what about the Food and Drug
yeah, that's a bigger issue. I mean, Chinese, the biggest outcrying recently is about environmental issue, and food is a major issue. A lot of people leave China, and rich people leave China to seek kind of immigration. Primarily, a lot of them cited about unsafe food and also baby formula issue. So I guess that to respond to this kind of outcry, I mean, so they think they can mimic what the U.S. is doing. And because right now they think their problem is too many departments are taking care of a food and a drug issue. So right now they combine the office for food, drug, and also the institute to control the manufacturer, institute to control the transportation and the sale, all together build this food and drug administration.
So do you think that these changes will make the government more answerable in any way? One of the things, Li Keqiang, the new premier, had a press conference over the weekend, and one of the things he was talking about during his press conference was the idea that there needs to be more government transparency. We need to have the people be answerable to the people, be answerable to the media. Are these changes going to help in that regard?
Well, you guys talk a lot about restructuring, streamlining. I think my overall take is that that's just mere tinkering. Actually, I think I tend to see these as negative signs of reform or lack of. Because in the previous administration, Wen Jiabao openly talked about political reform, but we don't hear those words again. What we're hearing are some technical kind of streamlining or reorg. That means the government really, under the new leadership, doesn't have any intention of any radical changes. So we don't know right now on what is on the minds of Li Keqiang. Of course, on certain occasions after he assumed the office, he mentioned that he would probably want to build up a smaller Chinese government. He wanted to simplify the approval procedures. Right now, there are 1,700 procedures for covering all kinds of initiatives. However, he said he was going to cut out 1/3 of them. So we're going to see a smaller government. That's what the kind of picture he painted for us. And another big area he mentioned during his press conference is that he's going to allow private capital into the 3 strategic, previously prohibited areas. They are the energy, telecommunications, and finance. Right now, these 3 sectors are being dominated by princelings and people with vested interests. So it remains to be seen whether Li Keqiang really had the will and both the capacity to allow foreign capital, allow some kind of entrepreneurial activities during those 3 sectors.
So does a smaller government mean a more effective government?
Of course, I mean, what he is saying is what he planning to do. But we know Wen Jiabao, 10 years ago, he has a more ambitious plan. He didn't achieve much. So I guess at the end of the day, he said, a lot of my order cannot get out of my office. So basically, in Chinese kind of this bureaucratic system, and it looks like they are dictatorship, like the central government control everything. Indeed, that's not. I mean, whenever there is a policy which can benefit local government, make local government official have more chance to make money, the policy will be implemented almost immediately. like the organization of the Olympic game in 2008, because every level of government have a chance to have their own project. From their own project, they can take a bribe. So they build everything so quickly. But meanwhile, when there are some less profit project, like they build the housing for relative kind of low-income people, no government can fulfill their promise for continues many years. It's always like this. Whenever there is a policy that can benefit local government, they can do it. So right now, a lot of his policy is indeed against those people's interest, some kind of vested interest groups' interest. The resistance is very strong. So how much he can achieve is really unknown.
Well, let me ask, I mean, was there anything that you think they should have done in terms of the State Council that they didn't do?
Well, I think the English phrase goes like this: if there is a will, there is a way. But this phrase may not apply in a Chinese context, because we have seen some very, I think, constructive kind of ideas being conveyed by Li Keqiang. However, these ideas had to be backed up by sanctioned by the current regime, which has its power in a Communist Party system. So if the Communist Party doesn't have any genuine kind of will or intention to have political reform, then all these plans are nothing but wishful thinking.
Right. I guess one area I think they didn't really mention is the financial area. And at the end of the Wen Jiabao's era, he constantly mentioned we need to reform the kind of a financial system. You know, we all say Wall Street make too much money, but for Chinese kind of a national bank or kind of a government bank, their profit is combined among all the world bank combined together can match the full kind of the bank make by this for the money makes for this for national bank. So Chinese bank system, financial system, they are making too much money. They are control too many things. They are almost kind of at the moment where like you can't touch. So they are the really kind of the hardcore place where the vested interest kind of exist.
That's true. I think during Wen Jiabao's tenure, I remembered very clearly that, at least on one occasion, he clearly mentioned China's banking failures. He clearly stated that the banking system needs reform or major overhaul because it was inefficient, it was ineffective, and it's not fair and just. However, the current administration, just as Jason pointed out, didn't even touch upon the most thorny issue of the system. And I think that's largely stems from the early argument I made, because finance is really at the core of the interest. Nobody wants to touch it because it is central. It is essential to the well-being of the regime. And then they will just leave it as it is. And if it leave it as it is, then all of the economic problems will stay in place.
So basically financial reform and political reform.
That's right.
All right. Thank you both for joining us today to talk about this issue. And thanks for watching. We'd love to hear what you think about this issue. You can email us at the address below, or if you're on YouTube, send us a comment and let us know what you think.